Picture this. It's Tuesday morning. Dame, time out. Quick, time out, Dame.
It's a little. You just want to restart? I mean,
No. I just want a quick time out.
Time out.
What I'm about to tell you is a true story.
Oh.
Okay, I'm back to my...
to...
Well, sometimes I... Okay, here we go. Picture this. It's Tuesday morning. And at the Indianapolis Colts complex, Joe Flacco, Super Bowl winning quarterback, and I walk in from the parking lot to do a day's work. We make eye contact. He looks down as he's about a foot taller than me, and I look up into the sky like I'm seeing the Lord of Age. He's heading into the locker room to figure out how to beat this week's opponent, the Buffalo Bills, and I'm walking in to improve the financial acumen of the employees of the Indianapolis Colts. And that's how Tuesday started. Hello, everybody. It's Chris Delaney. It's Damon. Hey, everybody.
Hello.
Joe Flacco is 39 years old.
Yeah, I mean, he's basically... he would have been in a school district when I was in a school district. That's how I do it now. I was a senior, but you were in second grade.
Younger than you.
So. Oh, significantly younger.
Yeah.
This is my birthday month, Kristen. I'm not a birthday month sort of fella.
Bummer.
I know. I can't tell who Facebook user is. I assume it's Neil. That's no Mutombo story. It really isn't. It really isn't. How is everybody?
Is everyone coming through as Facebook user?
I don't know.
It might be. Yeah, because I see multiple people saying good day.
Okay, look. I can't tell who anybody is today.
Come on. Get on it, Mark Zuckerberg.
Big Rick Swink, I was on a ruck last night. Okay, so can I get a ruck vest update real quick?
Yeah, the people are here for it.
It hurts my trapezius muscles.
Huh.
It really, like, Kristen, I was doing, I don't want to say I was doing you a favor last night, but I was fulfilling a promise that I made to you last night on my phone via an email I received on your behalf.
Yes.
And I'm rucking. So I'm rucking and I'm thumbing.
Great.
I'm rucking and I'm thumbing. And it's just choking me. And I think I got to decrease the weight, Dame.
Well, that's okay. I mean, it's all right.
Are you sure that it is fitting right?
Well, no, I'm shaped like a pear. They're not meant to fit on fruit.
That's not what I meant.
Oh.
I mean that when my sister and I used to run with a weight vest, you want it to be really tight around your rib cage. It shouldn't be putting that much weight on your traps, should it?
Maybe I should have the weight sit on my belly, and so it actually is like a shelf. Maybe I've got a built-in advantage called a lack of discipline. Dame, I also put my Whoop strap back on. I think I'm back in.
Really?
No.
That was a really soft commitment, yeah.
What's going on? I mean, slow news week, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's what we're going to do today. A lot of big feelings around the country. A lot of big feelings. It's fine. We're not talking politics, but we are talking about the economic impact of the presidential election, the outcome of the presidential election. We would have done this no matter who won, right? If Jill Stein had mustered more than 7 votes, we'd be here talking about that, but we're not. What a cheap shot. Why did I do that? I have no idea.
Wasn't kind.
She, what do you think the total of her votes that she's accumulated over the last 3 presidential runs that she's had?
I saw a stat this morning. I feel like she had
1.2 million.
I have no idea.
I think she had 500,000 or 600,000 votes this time, maybe.
Yeah, I think so too.
I don't. It's more than I got. Dame, do you think you got a write-in?
No.
Kristen's not old enough.
You're not.
Here's what's on the show this week. We're going to talk about the economic impact, both the market and the economy, of a second Trump administration. And then we're going to talk about, I think, Kristen, which I love the list, the checklist of things to make sure you cover. Be sure before you combine finances with a lover.
Correct. That's exactly how I phrased it.
Are we talking marriage or are we just talking combining finances?
Combining finances.
Okay.
Eh,
Oh.
I take that back because you can get married. If you get married, you should have these conversations, but you should also have these conversations if you're combining your finances.
Okay. Well, Dame, don't hurt your brain. That you just made a face. It's like I think you could have an aneurysm right here and there. Is that a new watch, Dame?
No, it's I've had this one for a while. I got Apple Watch user guy for the most part, but
Sure.
I noticed there was like almost a irritation spot underneath the Apple Watch after a while, and I was like, I probably ought to stop that.
You know what it is?
Tim Apple trying to dig into my body.
Bacteria.
It's the Bluetooth biting you.
Oh yeah, well it could be. So I don't know. On an extended hiatus from more technology right now.
So I love my daughter. She's 15 and she's wonderful, and but she's a weirdo like me. Like, you know, like you don't know what is going on. She walked in the home the other night after cheer practice or whatever, came up to me, sunk her top teeth into my shoulder really hard and just goes, "Beaver," and just dropped me to the ground. I don't mean, like, you guys have known me a very long time. That's the output that you get from a
Deserved, probably.
yeah.
I never would have guessed that your daughter would do that.
Wasn't she the same one that like roundhouse kicked you or something after her like first gymnastics or like something? Was that her?
Probably. I don't actually. I try to block it out. Oh, she's a wonderful weirdo. Okay. You guys want to do this? I don't have anything after this. I mean, we could go all day.
Oh,
No. Let me see what I got. I got something at noon. So we're good. You guys have any restraints?
I think you and I are in the same meeting at noon.
yeah. I don't have anything till noon either. Are we going for a 2-hour show today?
No.
Guys, so last Sunday, my son's soccer team played the number one soccer team at the age group in the country. Like, so that's a rare occurrence.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, it was fun to watch. I mean, in a way, right? Because to see truly that team is the best group of 12-year-olds in the country at doing what they do by this ranking system, and it was like, holy moly! So that's what the best looks like. It was fascinating.
I mean, there was a very clear discrepancy between the teams. I mean,
So yeah, we scoreless in the first half, which was amazing for us.
feels
right?
like a big victory because soccer is all about big scores.
Yeah, we lost 0-3, but like they averaged like 6 or 7 goals a game. But man, Dame, their center back, and for what I'm at, he was giant. He's like he's a 12-year-old that's probably bigger than me. And I was like, at one point, I thought he was going to ask out my wife. I was going to offer him the keys to the car. I was going to give him a mortgage deed. It's like, hey, whatever, sir, whatever. He's stronger than me. Chicago, growing those kids up quickly.
Yeah.
All right, let's do this. If we may. And if you guys have I think the impact of the election conversation is probably 2 segments. And if it's not, then we can pivot to the relationship thing. Are you okay with that? Kristen made a face.
I did, just because I feel like this is not the conversation where I have a ton to offer, but that's okay. I can be relatively quiet today.
Well, maybe I can feel smart for once.
Yes,
You ever think about that?
I would love that.
I told her pre-show that your segment idea was going to go 2 segments. Pretty easy.
Said, why?
Yeah. She was like, we're not qualified. I was like, when has that stopped?
Well, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you some information, and then you react to it. That's great.
Very similar to what I said. I said, actually, you were going to tell us what you thought, and then Kristen and I were going to say whether we agreed or disagreed and argue for a little while.
That's great.
Yeah.
I don't think we're going to argue about any of this.
Really?
I really don't.
That's what Dame said like 4 shows ago, and you threatened to put Dame and I in like a friendship sweater.
Yeah.
Yeah. Every once in a while on stuff like this, though, Kristen will have an angle that I haven't considered. It's like a young angle, because and it's just something I hadn't considered. So that could happen today.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm ready.
Okay, I'm not. Let me get all the system fired up here. I also covered this on the Indianapolis Business Journal podcast recording yesterday, which comes out on Monday. So I tried to keep it more professional on that than probably I will on this.
Fair.
Out of prudence.
Good.
Good. Okay, sorry, everybody. You know what? I'll just go. Here we go in 3, 2, 1. This week on the Pete the Planner Show, we answer your money questions. Here's how the show works. You email us, askpete@petetheplanner.com. That's askpete@petetheplanner.com. And here's what happens. Sometimes we answer those questions. Sometimes we don't. Today, we're doing something a little different. By we, I mean Damian Dunn Monfrere. Hello, Dame.
Hello, Pete.
And Kristen Lanius, also Monfrere. Hello, Kristen.
Hello, Pete.
For those that are wondering, that maybe have lived in a coffee can in the back of their yard for the last week, the presidential election just happened. Mm-hmm. Former President Trump is now future President Trump, President-elect. There we go. And so what we're going to do today for the first couple segments is we're going to talk about the market and economic impact of his victory. We're going to do our best. I'll speak for myself. And if you guys want to stack hands on this, feel free. We're going to do our best to keep politics out of it. We're going to try to focus on numbers. There will be some opinion, but it's going to be based in numbers, we think. Dame, are you willing to agree to that, or are you going to view it a little differently?
Yes, totally agree.
Kristen?
Completely agree.
Okay. I also acknowledge a lot of big feelings around the country. People are like, this is the best thing that ever happened to him. This is the worst thing that ever happened to him. I'm not marginalizing that. That's not what we're doing today. It's not what we're doing today. Okay. So that's a different show on a different platform. Okay. So Dame, when did you get the official news that President Trump was elected?
Wednesday morning.
Like normal morning or like 2 a.m. ish?
5:30 ish.
Okay.
Sometime.
Yeah. Farm time.
Yeah.
Kristen, how about you?
I woke up at like 4:30 or something and checked my phone and saw.
Yeah, same, me too. And then I immediately went to the CNBC app on my phone because I wanted to see if I was right. And I was. The pre-market was going crazy. And so the immediate impact of this was about the least surprising thing that has happened in the last few months, that the market went bananas when President Trump was elected. Kristen, did this surprise you?
Not even a little, no.
Dame, did this surprise you?
No.
Okay. And for what it's worth, I'm going to try to do a little of this today. It's not even out of fairness. It's just sort of out of transparency. My guess is that if Vice President Harris would have been elected, I think the market would have gone down quite a bit on Wednesday. That's my guess. I don't know how you all feel, Dame, but how do you feel?
I think it would have been flat. Honestly, I don't know if it necessarily would have gone down. If it would have gone down, maybe marginally, but my suspicion is it would have been flat-ish.
Kristen?
I think it would have gone down because the market doesn't like to be surprised.
Nice. Interesting. Here's what I thought. I thought it was going to go down, and then I thought it was going to trickle back up through the rest of the year. I think with what's happened with the reaction to President Trump getting elected, I think it ratcheted up. I don't think it's going to necessarily trickle back down. Again, today, we're just talking money today. We're talking money today. Another thing that happened, though, is that bond yields increased significantly. And when that happens, typically what it means is that there's going to be a fear of higher inflation, and there's going to be a fear of increased interest rates in the near future, which, Dame, is really weird, especially given that on Thursday of this week, the Fed, and everyone knew it, lowered interest rates another quarter point.
Yeah, I mean, it was a bit surprising to see that happen, especially I had nerded out and went to an economic forum earlier this week and listened to a whole bunch of different data. And I thought I had a pretty good grasp on what was going to happen Thursday, or I guess for the rest of this week at that point. And seeing that particular result was a little surprising. Now, you could potentially argue that this is in preparation for some of the tariff rhetoric that's been thrown out there that's driving some of this in advance of seeing if this comes to fruition or not. But I didn't anticipate it clear as it came to.
May I ask a clarifying question there? You feel free to punt. Everybody today, sensitive topic, so feel free to punt on anything. You said tariff rhetoric. President Trump said that he will slap tariffs on everything, and it is his favorite word. He's tariff man. Are you talking about that rhetoric, or is there some different rhetoric that
you're exactly right. That's what I was referring to.
Okay. I think part of this, too, if we try to look at the economics of this, is what were campaign promises and what was bluster. You know, like there's that's where I'm a little uncertain, right? So I guess we got to take him at his word, at least for now. Maybe. Yeah.
I mean, this is we could easily go down a different path, and we've already promised in stacked hands not to. But I think that's a really big challenge for the American voter in general, is trying to parse what is actual legitimate policy and what's just being said on the campaign trail to earn votes on either side. So this is you're right. The proof will be in the pudding. It'll play out however it plays out, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, Kristen, this is not a big surprise. Cryptocurrency surged nearly 8% on Wednesday, and our friend Dougie Deadlifts is getting closer to his appearance on this show, and he will be on the show if Bitcoin ever reaches 100,000. Okay, so let's get into, if we can for a second, I'm going to give you an industry that I think is going to do well, at least in the first couple years of the Trump administration, because it's kind of hard to look further out than that. I got to be honest.
Fair.
And then we can talk about who's going to struggle. All right. So to begin, I believe the energy sector company. Oh, none of this is investment advice. Dame, did we hit him with that yet?
Good point. No, we have not. None of this is investment advice. Do not chase it. We are still the same morons that we were last week.
I think the fossil fuel industry is going to go bananas. Dame, agree, disagree?
Totally agree.
Kristen, agree, disagree?
Traditional energy is what I would call it.
Yes, 100%, especially in the comments that we saw out of the campaign for the last 2 weeks of the love of oil. Yeah.
The love of oil. So far, his favorite word is tariffs, and he loves oil.
Mm-hmm. And RFK is going nowhere near the oil, is what we've been promised.
Oh, are we talking? Well, actually, I do have an RFK thing a little bit later as it relates to industries that might be struggling soon. Okay. So we'll see. Okay. If you've just joined us late, just making some observations, some predictions about what a second Trump administration can mean to the market at large, particular industries, and the economy. And we're doing our best to keep political opinions out of it. We're trying to take campaign promises, see them to fruition, and then see what the impact of those promises would be. I believe the financial services industry, specifically in banking, will go crazy because of deregulation, right? And just general favorable fiscal policy. So I expect banking stocks to go crazy, at least over the next 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, I think there's going to be less regulatory pressure put on banks and financial industries in general. And it wouldn't surprise me to see some profits start to happen on a more regular basis in that sector.
Kristen, thoughts? Agree, disagree?
I'm curious, how do you think that some of the market reaction plays into that of did you say we saw increasing bond yields based on the idea that we think there will be inflation? Do you think that impacts banking or no?
I don't think it has not in my calculations. I'll say this. I think, as we'll talk about here in a few minutes, the inflation worries are really around a couple things: increased government spending and tariffs, which we're going to spend a lot of time on here in a little bit. But let's do this. Let's take a break. So far, here's what we've said. We believe the fossil fuel industry is going to have a pretty good few years. We think the banking industry is going to have a pretty good few years. And we'll come back. We'll hit what else is going to do well. and some things that probably aren't going to do too well. None of this is investment advice, but it is entertaining conversation. And I'm Pete the Planner. All right, still feel relatively clean.
Yeah, yeah, we've done it.
We've done it. We have done it. Yeah. It's really interesting. And you know, Mason King, who's the host of the IBJ podcast, asked me on the air yesterday. He said, okay, we went through all these predictions. And he said, how should this change how someone invests? And I was like, man, that's an amazing question, actually. It's a really good question. Dame, can you guess what my answer was?
Yeah, but do you want me to say it now?
Yeah, go ahead.
It shouldn't.
Exactly. That's exactly what I said. Should have zero impact. You should go talk to your investment advisor and say, hey, how do we account for this? But it really shouldn't impact your financial decisions that much.
I was just trying to think through different scenarios potentially where it might impact.
Yeah, me too. I feel you.
The obvious one that we always tend to gravitate towards is somebody who is just getting retired or just retired and trying to take some of that into consideration. But I don't think there's any need for them to make major wholesale changes at this point either.
Let's get back to it. I have so many thoughts. I want to get them. You know, like let's go. I don't want to spill it in the break. In 3, 2, 1. Back on the Pete the Planner show, talking the impact of President Trump's reelection on the markets and on the economy. Joining me, of course, are Dame and Kristen. Jumping back into financial services real quick, and this one's whether I like it or not. This one is, I think cryptocurrency is going to have a pretty interesting few years. And interesting, I mean, good for them. Kristen, do you see that a particular way?
I don't honestly know how I feel about that one, because crypto doesn't feel like this like red or like Republican thing. And so I honestly don't know.
And I'm not disagreeing with you. I just want to clarify my perspective on this. To me, this has nothing to do with Republican or Democrat or conservative or moderate. This to me is what Trump has said on the campaign trail. He's often been accused of not being a conservative, right? I mean, so none of my thoughts have anything to do with the parties themselves. Dame, what do you think about crypto? Do you think it's going to flourish under the second Trump administration or suffer?
I mean, I know somebody that's going to suffer under the Trump administration related to crypto. It's the SEC chairman, Gary Gensler. I mean, he's likely on his way out day one, would be my guess. So he's done a big part of trying to rein things in and get things a little bit more controlled in that space. But I don't know if making any changes is going to necessarily increase I don't even know what the right word is. I don't see how a Trump administration increases the value that is offered. I'm using air quotes around value that's offered by cryptocurrency. So I don't know.
I have an idea how, and then I've got a thought about the SEC because, and I will tell you, I have a cynical take there as to what the impact of the head of the SEC getting fired on day one, which will happen. I think it's the deregulation again. You're going to see all brakes are off. And so it's that deregulation which will drive volume and creativity of crypto use. I think it's going to be the Wild West. I think the market's going to go wild for that. But I also think there's going to be a lot of negative repercussions that we can't even put into words yet, much in the Sam Bankman-Fried type things. Which gets me to the SEC and what's going to happen when the head of the SEC is fired. Dame, it is going to be neutered completely. And what I believe you will see is an increase in investor fraud against investors by financial advisors and stockbrokers. I think we're going to come into the era of terrible financial advice that takes advantage of people.
Boy, that's a strong take.
I know.
I would not go anywhere close to that far with that, because there's still even if there's a head change at the SEC, it's not going to become the Wild West. I just don't see any way, shape, or form that's going to happen. Now, there may be some potentially looser restrictions, but I don't think they're going to walk back anything that currently exists. That maybe some stuff that was formerly on the table becomes less of a conversation. But man, I do not see regulation and oversight in the financial services industry becoming less because of a new administration.
Well, this is the first part of which where we do disagree, because and this might be my hottest take of the day, but I feel very strongly that we're about to be in the era of financial malfeasance for financial advisors. Kristen?
I don't know, because maybe this is just, maybe I'm too much of in a younger bubble on this, is that I feel that the everyman does so much in the way of investor protection already that like people are pointing out, like we do on this show, like things to be looking out for. And so I don't know that I feel that strongly about that.
Is there something specific, Pete, that you think is going to get walked back, or do you think it's just going to be an overall reduction in enforcement of existing laws?
I'll say it this way. Just like the IRS can get neutered from time to time with staffing, and you can weaken a department simply by its staffing and by the leadership that's appointed to it. And again, I'm trying to separate harebrained theories that I might have from what I really think is going to happen. I think President Trump has not been served well, it probably by his perspective, by the SEC and whatever he's had to go through, especially in relation to DJT stock. With he said there was manipulation. They said there wasn't. Like I just think he's not going to do them any favors. But let's move on. All right. I think the military contractors are going, stocks are going to be have a good couple of years based on defense spending. Dame?
Yep, I agree.
Kristen?
I mean, I want to say that, yes, I agree. But at the same time, I don't remember in how many presidencies Trump's the first president to not start new war in his first term, and like however many presidencies. So like, does that really, like, I understand that traditionally you would say like, oh, a Republican is in office, this is great for the defense industry. But like, if you look at his first term, would that suggest that that's going to be true this time?
I think there's the opportunity. I won't say likelihood. I'll say the opportunity that we're engaged in other conflicts through proxy. And as we're providing equipment, we'll have to replace it.
I don't know, because I just feel, and again, this is about campaign promises versus what actually happens, right? But I mean, I feel like the campaign promise is like, I rule by the iron fist of my voice. And like, when I say things, then people take them seriously. And that's why there was potentially, depends on who you ask, less conflict in his first term. And if he can really deliver on that, why would defense spending go up?
I just think based on, if we're going off of campaign rhetoric to some degree, you got to take a person to at their word until they prove otherwise. Again, this is someone that wanted military parades, right? They want the feel of a large force, and I think that there's not a lot of people in the media that disagree with this take. Let me just put it that way. Not a lot of people disagree that defense contractors are about to make a bunch of money.
We'll see.
How about this one? If that one bothered you, how about this one? Private prisons.
Interesting. Private
prisons. If you are the party of law and order and mass deportation and lockup and all these sorts of things, it's gross, but I think private prisons are going to have a heyday here in the next 4 years. Kristen?
I don't think I can argue against that.
It's interesting. I'm finding it very hard to come up with reasons against. I may not agree with some of the reasons why you think they will do well, but I don't see any potential roadblocks to them continuing to do well.
All right. I'm going to hit you with one more. And you know what? Here's the thing, Kristen. I hate it. But your beautiful topic, which was going to be part of the show today, is now next week.
Yeah.
It's all right. It's not timely.
We have to do this for a whole nother segment.
I think we have to.
Go
What is this bothering you?
Go ahead.
Is it bothering you? Why is this bothering you? All right. So this is my other spicy take. So this is a spicy take. I think any business that Elon Musk is involved in under the next few years will benefit greatly.
Oh, yeah.
And I think literally everything he touches, especially if he's advising the president on business, will benefit him. And so I'm not telling people to invest. I'm just thinking anything he touches business wise will do very well in the next 2 to 4 years. Kristen?
Many thoughts. And
Okay, well then you're going to save them for the break.
Okay.
All right. Dame, you too.
Okay.
Coming up after the break, will Elon Musk's businesses thrive in the next Trump administration? That's next on the Pete the Planner Show. I'm Pete the Planner. Kristen, you don't like this topic?
Not really, no.
Why? What makes you uncomfortable about it?
I just generally don't feel qualified enough to speak on it.
But it's just your opinion.
Right. But I guess that's the difference between, and I don't want to say like, I try really hard to not give my opinion on things that I don't feel that I've researched well enough to stand firm in them. And so like, while I am an opinionated person, it's because I live for learning and to understand the things that I believe. And like some of these things, I just don't feel that I have enough information on to even have an opinion.
Dame, how do you feel?
Same. No, I'd much rather spend time studying some of this stuff to have a more in-depth, less superficial opinion on some of this stuff. But I also know that the chances of me understanding what any of these topics, top to bottom, as well as experts in this area, are slim to none. So my opinion is just as valid as anybody else's. We just have airwaves and podcasts. So.
The way I view this is this topic is interesting to me because with all the emotion that's been this week in the last several months, in the last 4 years, the last 8 years, the last 12 years, there's still quantitative measure of the electorate, right? There is going to be good and there is going to be bad fiscally. And I think trying to discover where those elements are not partisan at all. I think they're interesting. And the same would be true under a Harris administration. It's like this industry will do well, this one's going to be poorly, and maybe they're different. And I just find it interesting. I don't find it disturbing, really. Other than the private prison thing is sort of a gross idea. I mean, it's a gross idea that we'll have more prison population. To some people, I guess some people think that's great. I tend to not think it's great, but
never mind. Punting on that.
Well, that's all right. A good self punt. It's like the email response that you delete before you send. Sometimes it's all in the wrist, as they say. Chris, let's go in 3, 2, 1. Back on the Pete the Planner Show, talking the impact of Trump's re-election. Is it technically a re-election, Dame? I mean, it is a re-election, but he wasn't the incumbent.
Correct. Yeah, it's a re-election.
It's a re-election with a gap.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're talking industries that'll do well, industries that'll do poorly, and then we're going to talk the economy here in just a second. Kristen, I said any business that Elon Musk is tied to in the next 2 to 4 years will do well. This is my prediction, and you said you have thoughts.
Well, how can JD Vance has promised that they're going to get rid of the whole everybody in California has to drive an EV by like 2034 or whatever. JD Vance has promised they're going to get rid of that. And then in addition to that, Trump has promised this like love of oil. So how can Elon Musk, some of his businesses, thrive in that environment?
Dame, any thoughts?
On EVs?
Elon Musk's Tesla. I'll just go Tesla. Tesla has seen their market share come back to earth a little bit with all the other car manufacturers jumping into the space in general. Now you could argue that he still's figured out a way to do it better than virtually anybody, and anybody that does it better is way higher priced than him. So if there's going to be a market for affordable, reliable electric vehicles, it's probably going to still be dominated by Tesla. The regulation, though, the regulation component could be a pretty big wrench in the works. Now, I think there is very likely a world in which they coincide really, really well, because there's major swaths of the country that EVs don't make any sense at all. And there's a whole bunch of parts of the country where they're the ideal daily transportation, to be perfectly honest. So I think there's a possibility where they both thrive.
75%, 60 to 75% of Tesla's parts are manufactured in the United States. So I think that's where they actually, to some degree, benefit from the tariffs. They benefit from the lack of competition from Chinese EVs that were sort of knocking on the door. So that's why I think it'll be fine. And then straight up, I mean, if you supported the president with over $100 million of donations during his campaign, like, I wasn't born yesterday. Like, there's going to be some impact there. And yes, that's a cynical take. I'm not that mad about it. I just think that's what's going to happen. All right, let's get to what's going to. Do you guys want to add anything else that's going to go well? Any other industries you want to pop in before I move to the industries I think are going to struggle?
No.
What do you think about construction?
Yeah. Yeah, at least in the first couple of years of interest rates stay low.
Mm-hmm.
But the challenge there always, it's just like with the lumber situation, the second you have to import any materials with, Mr. Tariff, you're in trouble. And then it's going to suffer.
Donald J. Tariff.
Yeah. I mean, his words, not ours.
Yeah.
All right. What do I think is going to struggle? Renewable energy.
Yeah.
Now, I just think any renewable energy plays are going to struggle quite a bit. And you both reacted as you agree with that.
Yes.
Subsidies are going to go away or won't be re-upped. And it's going to be a really, really tough sell for the average everyday American to go out and buy solar or wind or whatever, just because it's still expensive without a little bit of help.
Do you want my RFK take next, Kristen, or do you want a little bit of a hot take next? Which would
I
you
would
prefer?
like your RFK take, please.
I think if he is put in charge in any capacity over healthcare in this country, I think pharma stocks are really going to struggle, and ancillary healthcare stocks, because if you simply, and again, I'm taking people at face value. I'm not going any further than that. If you were so anti-vax and you are leading that department, all the money made from vaccines, you're going to see a change there. And so I think pharma stocks could suffer based on campaign promises and I was about to say the threat of RFK being put in healthcare, but that would just indicate how I feel as opposed to probably a better verb. What do you think, Kristen?
Is he anti-vax or is he just anti the FDA?
He's the most anti-vax person on the planet, Kristen.
I just feel like it's a legitimate question. Everything I've seen is about like the FDA in general, not about vaccines specifically.
Dame?
Yeah, I totally agree. Between pharma, healthcare, I think it's going to get a ton of pressure for costs as well. I mean, we're starting to see ramping up in media stories, at least locally for sure, on that side of things as well. So I think the healthcare industry in general is in for some shakeup.
Kristen?
I'm curious though, because didn't Trump, again, face value, make comments about bringing IVF under like coverage for healthcare instead of it being viewed as elective? So there could be, again, face value, there could be subsectors of general healthcare that perform well if certain promises are kept.
I would say, though, if that's the case, and this is where I'm going to tap in with, I have no idea what I'm talking about, is if that's the case, then insurance companies would have to spend more on IVF if it's required that they do that. And so therefore it is less profitable and it is actually worse for them.
For health insurance companies, but I'm not saying, I mean, healthcare isn't just insurance companies.
True. Here's my somewhat hot take. Maybe. I don't think it is. I don't know. You tell me. I think with all the tariffs, I think domestic automobile manufacturers who get parts from outside North America are going to see their costs rise. And so they're either going to increase their prices here, which is going to hit the consumer with inflationary challenges. And then the other side of that, too, is they're going to have to cut costs. And I think you're going to see a lot of auto workers laid off. So that would be my hot take, is that the auto industry domestically is going to struggle, especially if they manufacture parts outside the United States.
I have a question for the car man on the show.
Okay, go ahead.
I don't disagree with Pete's take. Damien, is there an automaker that you think is least impacted by tariffs? Like, who manufactures and assembles the most of their fleets here?
That's a really great question. I mean, Pete just gave us a statistic on Tesla. They're probably, honestly, one of the highest domestically produced manufacturers right now. You'd have to, I mean, on the Moroni sticker on all new cars, you can see where parts are sourced and things like that. I would, that's a really interesting question. I don't know, but I do know already there's some major car manufacturers that are in trouble. Jeep announced layoffs in their Toledo plant. Nissan's laying off a whole bunch of folks. I saw something about Audi, but I didn't read far enough in the article to see if they were included as well, which is a VW group, which VW is in big trouble as well. So there's a whole bunch of prime for big problems in the auto market or the auto industry at this point, and it'll be really interesting to see how this shakes out. Kristen,
I have another follow-up question, and I genuinely don't know the answer to this. How does this impact foreign automakers that make a large percentage of their parts here, like Toyota?
Yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, the Toyota, Honda, I mean, they've all got plants in the Midwest. Nissan's in Tennessee. Kia potentially in Alabama. But there's a Mercedes as well. They've all got plants in the United States at this point. BMW in South Carolina. So I'm not sure exactly how that's going to work, if it's going to be cars that are actually imported from offshore that would be hit, or if it's just anything that manufacturer produces. Because if it forces them to bring more manufacturing into our borders, maybe that's a win.
Any other industries you want to put on the is not going to do well list real quick before I move on?
No.
Okay, so what I'm giving you now, and then we're going to wrap this segment with it. I got to go quick. The Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget every year puts out estimates of the impact of legislation that is, and it is, who's putting us deeper into debt. And the last several administrations have. They just have. President Trump did. President Obama did. President Biden did. So what are the estimates here? Low cost scenario is that by the end of this term, it will increase debt by $1.65 trillion for President Trump. That's the low end. And the high end estimate is at $15 trillion. And the ranges for Kamala would have been $300 billion on the low and $8.3 trillion on the high. So I don't know. We got to take a break. Coming up after the week, the other biggest waste of money of the week in the news. I'm Pete the Planner. For what it's worth, and the air on air is not going to get this. I wanted to go through and tell you what's happened the last several presidencies. During the first Trump term, debt grew by $27 trillion. Grew around 19 trillion to 27 trillion. Okay, so what I'm saying?
Okay.
It was 8 trillion coming into the presidency, and it was 27 when he left. And the reason for that, or the Tax Cut and Jobs Act of 2017, which is getting extended, right? You cut the government's revenue. That's what's going to happen. Increased spending on defense. He did a lot of defense spending in his first term, and then the obvious one that we all know is COVID-19 predictions.
Right.
Is that true? I'm looking at the Facebook comments. Kristen is a little squirmy today. Dame, are you exasperated today?
No, I don't think so.
I don't feel. I do feel Kristen squirming. I do not feel Dame exasperated.
Yeah, I thought we were going to go to a tax conversation there, and I could have become exasperated at that point. But no,
we can do it now. I'd love to. Let me finish. Let me hit where Biden added $6.7 trillion. Okay, and some of that's COVID. Social programs and healthcare increased spending, right? President Obama's terms, and it's I don't want to say it's a little bit unfair, but once you're so much in debt, you get into debt faster because of debt service, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in his first term, he added 5.1 trillion. And oddly, in his second term, he only added $3.6 trillion, which was pretty impressive given that it should have accelerated. The key factors to that second term: economic conditions improved, spending on programs like Social Security, Medicare, and interest on the debt continued to grow. Additionally, he faced constraints in implementing large spending cuts or tax increases due to political gridlock. So, I don't know. There you go. Dan, let's talk taxes.
Okay.
Go ahead. I mean, you want me to put something out there first, or what do you want to go?
You go ahead, lob whatever you want into the forum, Pete. And
Sure. Yeah, I don't have anything. I think the top end of the higher end of the wage scale will have great economic relief. I think the 2017 tax cuts are going to get extended. But the strange thing is, it's not going to feel any different because we experienced the 2017 tax cuts during the Trump administration, and we have during the Biden administration, and we're just going to continue with that. So it won't feel a lot different. How do you feel differently?
Same. It's going to be status quo. They're not going to reduce taxes any further. I don't think they're on either the individual or corporate side. I can't believe they would do it. And so it's not going to feel like anything different. But I can promise you that if they would have reverted to the old tax system and these would have expired, then it would have been a bigger issue that we all would have felt at some point in some way, whether that's increased prices, whether that's less income because we were going to be taxed higher. It would have been more of an issue. So we're in a best case scenario, in my opinion, on this, on the taxation side of the table, because I don't think raising taxes would have been a great idea at this point.
You know, what's interesting about that is, and this, I think this was meant to be my entire point, is you're right, Dame, that is good. The other side of the bad is increasing national debt, right? Like with extending tax cuts, there's less revenue.
Sure.
You know, and so I'm not here to say whether that's ultimately good or bad, but that is the balance of economics. Like those are the numbers. It's not really a debatable thing, right?
You alluded to this earlier. I'm saying like there's a number of ways. It's a different topic of conversation, but there's a number of ways that federal departments can be hamstrung or weakened, and that's by potentially gutting them. And if this campaign promise comes to fruition, where there's somebody in charge of reorganizing, we'll call it, the federal government and how we spend money and who's being used for what, a la Nicolas Maduro in Central America, Venezuela. I think
that's right.
Venezuela, I believe. There could be some significant cost savings coming on that side of the ledger of the budget as well. So I don't know. I mean, there are some serious unknowns about what the next couple of years look like. And in my belief, this Trump administration will have 2 years to get a whole bunch of stuff done, because I would not be surprised at all if the Democrats retake one or both houses in the midterm election.
I will note, since you bring up Maduro, and we've done I think, a good job of this during the entire show, you bring him up in the economics sense.
Correct. Yeah,
the decision he did.
Yeah.
Right? Because the last thing, it's like we are keeping everything else out of it. We're talking economics.
Yep.
I think ultimately what'll happen to the economy here is I think it's going to be really hot for 2 to 3 years, like incredibly hot. I think we're going to have massive GDP growth. The market's going to go bananas. I think it ultimately ends in inflationary conditions and a recession near the end of the presidency. But I don't say that critically. I just say anytime an economy gets overheated, there's a recession. It happens every single time. And it's not accusatory. It's just an overheated economy will lead to a recession. It happens. So that's what I think. Dan, what do you think the trajectory of the economy is?
I will say that we have very slow growth, but not negative.
Interesting. So we disagree on that quite a bit. Why do you think we have slow growth?
I just think as you said, there's a lot of stuff that's overheated right now. The individual is still struggling to make ends meet. I don't see any real change in that going forward. Even if inflation is taken care, air quotes, taken care of, we get down to that targeted 2 to 2.5% inflation rate going forward. Doesn't mean prices are going to come back. They're where they're at until wages come up to catch them. People are still going to feel the pinch. It's going to be very difficult to dedicate money in other ways that could potentially increase the economy through discretionary spending. I think it's going to be a very tight period for individuals, families over the next 2 to 4 years. I see really, really slow growth.
Interesting. I like hearing that perspective because it's clearly different than mine. Kristen, what do you think economy next 4 years?
I mean, I'm listening to both of you, and Dame says this every year based on his stock predictions. He always predicts the market's going to be up like 3%.
Fair.
I actually might be on his side this time, listening to the both of you like give your justification.
Okay. Look, I mean, if people are smart around here, they should side with Dame in most cases. Yeah, we'll see.
Economist, after all.
We'll see. We've got another, by the way, Tesla hits $1 trillion market cap as we're talking here,
Nice.
because Elon Musk will benefit
It just
from
like
another
blows
company.
my mind.
In what way? The $1 trillion or that it's benefiting?
Well, both, but the fact that Tesla's like that an EV manufacturer is benefiting when Donald Trump has been seen so many times in the last 2 weeks being like liquid gold and like talking about oil. And that's literally the antithesis of Tesla.
I just don't think, if you look at the evidence of, I don't want to say that because I don't like that. That's a loaded phrase. Strike evidence, the word evidence. I think I don't like research or evidence as words anymore. They are now ruined forever. I will say this. If Elon Musk was such a proponent of the president, I can't just look at it and go, that's out of his own patriotism. There's some other element to it, and I think he's got to benefit from it.
Yeah, but Tesla is not the only thing. Like making EVs is not the only way that he makes money.
I understand that, but I don't. I guess we'll see, right? Like I'm wrong 4 years from now. I mean, one, I hope to still be alive. Number two, I'll gladly tell you.
I mean, I think Musk felt like he had to get involved or really wanted to get involved with this for a couple of reasons. One, he wasn't invited to the table when the government was talking to EV manufacturers for whatever reason. And two, the whole thing around X and his
Sure.
control over that. And so, the potential limiting of what he sees as free speech or what he defines as free speech. I think he saw very clearly that there was one side of the electorate that was going to continue to support those things that he holds dear. And that's where he went. That's where his money went.
Can Trump force them to get those people out of space? That's really what I want to know.
Well, I mean,
Aren't they still there?
it'd be late January.
Ugh.
Forced them out of space. Are you talking about a missile up there? Wait.
No.
You could just use the Space Force. Is Space Force coming back?
That's what I'm saying. Why would Elon Musk not be in support of this? But didn't he say that they can go get these people and Boeing won't go get these people? Isn't that how this is working?
Didn't Boeing shut down their space stuff?
Yeah, Kristen, I mean, defense spending, Space Force. We have an entire no military branch. I'm telling you,
I will
defense
give you
spending is
that
going to go.
I will give you that.
So you are recanting or the whole defense spending thing or just the Space Force thing?
Just the Space Force thing.
Okay, fair enough. Hey, first, we're about to move on completely from this. Unless, Dame, do you have stories on this or not really?
I was just actually scrolling through to see what I should rearrange.
So that we can
We're
not
good.
talk
We're
about the economy.
You know what? Andy just said something. I was going to say it earlier and I didn't. Don't forget that because Bezos pulled the Washington Post endorsement of Kamala, he's going to be benefiting as well. Andy notes that. I agree with that actually too. I think Amazon is not going to have a regulatory environment that's going to make their business to do harder to do.
Even if they put tariffs on like almost all the products they sell on Amazon.
That's actually a good point too. Hey, good job, everyone, at keeping it keeping it kept
I think we
kept it economic, right?
virtual high five for all of us.
Maybe. Kristen might send me a tersely worded email after this or Slack. Who knows?
I would never.
I think you would.
I disagree.
I mean, not in this situation per se, but I think if you wanted to send one, I think you've got the words to meet the moment,
Maybe.
which is fine. Okay, Dame, you mentioned this earlier, and then Jen mentions that the Loper Bright decision environment is going to make the regulatory environment very difficult going forward. Also, I have got some reading to do because I have no idea what the heck that means.
Yeah, I did too.
Kristen, do you know that?
No.
Jeez. Thanks, Jen. Now I'll just go stare at my SAT scores to make me feel even dumber. But I will look that up. Thank you. Okay. Let's do some other stuff. I'm getting biggest waste of money of the week ready to go. In 3, 2, 1. This week's biggest waste of money of the week right here on the Pete the Planner show is Ratani engagement rings. December is the most popular month for engagements. For those looking to pop the question this year, Ratani has you covered. Their selection of made-to-order styles set in platinum, yellow, or white gold are handcrafted by seasoned artists in New York. Natural and lab-grown diamond options are available, as are gemstone options like sapphires, emeralds, and rubies. Whether choosing a pre-made style or using the Ring Studio to create a custom design, virtual consultation services are available to help in every step of the way. So, Dame, of course, I went to this site to see if I was going to buy someone a lab-grown diamond solitaire engagement ring.
Mm-hmm.
What would it cost me? And then we'll talk about why would it be the biggest waste of money of the week. And we're starting with Dame because I feel like Kristen might be more attuned to these costs. So we're going to start with Dame.
You didn't even tell me like the size. I mean, what are we talking about here? Are we talking about 1 carat? Are we talking?
Well, geez, I didn't know you worked in the Diamond District of New York.
Dude, give me the 4 C's here, which probably don't apply to
14 karat gold.
No, it has nothing to do with the diamond.
I'm getting to the diamond, sir. Okay, what's the weight? Okay, hold on. I'm looking.
It looks
Mrs.
like
Planner is listening to this, looking at the diamond on her.
It looks like a sad lima bean, or like Israeli couscous, just like a.
it looks like 2, I feel.
No. Okay, what do you think, Dave?
Or we're talking the lab grown side of things.
Yes.
Okay. I will go with $3,000.
Kristen,
$5,600.
$391. And here's why it's the biggest waste of money of the week. I asked a very classy lady, not Mrs. Planner, and I'm not suggesting that she's not classy. It was just a different woman this morning. I asked this classy person, let's say your special love friend bought you a lab-grown diamond. How would you feel about that? And I gave her room to emote and give me ideas. And the person said, yeah, I wouldn't want that. And my fear, anytime I'm like, yeah, I'll get you a ring, but I don't want to spend thousands and thousands of dollars. And I would think that's a good idea. But the fact that then you're given this gift that's not appreciated is in itself a waste of money. And I don't need that scrutiny in my life. Kristen, how do you see this differently?
I have so many thoughts.
Kristen has thoughts. What are they?
I have so many thoughts. First of all, the debate of like lab grown versus natural diamond is like so mind blowing. And the actual value of lab grown diamonds is so little. Like as far as like how much they cost to make, the markup is absolutely unbelievable. But they're the same. It's like I saw a jeweler give the equivalent of like it's whether you made the ice cube in your freezer or you put water outside and it froze, it's still ice. And apparently that is the equivalent for diamonds, just for what it's worth.
Dave?
First of all, let's make sure everybody understands that diamonds aren't as rare as De Beers has made them out to be. They withhold inventory to artificially inflate the cost of diamonds. It's a racket. So that being said, I think you have to be really careful if you buy your Pete, have you lovey-dovey, I believe is a phrase that you've used around a few times?
Yeah.
A lab-grown diamond without getting their feelings on it first, because that could be a major issue at some point in your relationship.
I've always contended that I do a pretty good job on gifts, but it's anytime you give a gift and it backfires, it startles you and terrifies you for decades to come. And it just feels like I would not want to miss on that one. Dame, what's in the news this week?
A record number of Americans in 2024 used inheritance to help finance a down payment for their first home. That's according to a new survey from the National Association of Realtors, which found Americans who bought homes for the first time between July of 23 and June of 24 were older and wealthier than in previous years. The report underscores the intensifying struggle that many Americans face when buying a home, as prices have rapidly climbed to near record levels and mortgage rates have remained stubbornly high. The survey found that first-time home buyers had a median household income of...
Oh, man.
First-time home buyers, median household income. Tell me, I'll tell you last year's.
Okay.
Last year's was 95,900.
I was going to guess
man.
90.
I was going to guess 88, but now I've got to guess higher, though, because of interest rates.
Yeah, but he also said more people bought with inheritance. So is it a trick and it's actually lower?
Good
I'm going
point.
to say 85.
88.
$97,000. $97,000. The median age of first-time home buyers.
104. Are you adding them together? Oh, no.
No.
33.
Kristen,
31.
38.
Ooh, wow.
What?
Kristen, 15 more years to go for you.
New record high. A generation ago, the typical first-time home buyer was in their late 20s, according to the report. First-time purchasers shrank to just 24% of all home buyers, the lowest share since NAR began collecting data in 81. That's 1981, by the way. 1/4 of first-time home buyers used a gift or loan from a relative or friend to help finance the purchase of their home, according to the report. That's a slightly higher share than in 2022 or 23, but lower than the pre-pandemic average of 31% between 97 and 19. And finally, a record high of 7% of first-time buyers used their inheritance to afford a down payment.
What else is in the news, young man?
TGI Friday gift cards are now a riskier app than crypto.
Oh, because is there a fear that they're going to go under?
In its
They
first
filed
bankruptcy hearing on Monday, the faltering potato skim purveyor heard from franchisees who expressed concern that they would be on the hook to honor gift cards when corporate runs out of dough. Reuters reported that TGI Fridays has $49.7 million in outstanding customer gift cards and just $5.9 million in cash on hand, which it's borrowing to aid the restructuring process. The outstanding gift cards, which in theory don't expire, are 21 years old in some cases. I'm going to say that one's probably lost. You don't have to worry about that one, restaurant. And if you've got one in a drawer, quote, go use it. Otherwise, you could end up in line for repayment behind a bunch of other creditors. In that case, this individual from DebtWire said gift card holders were likely to receive just pennies on the dollar.
You know what? Fast casual or casual dining restaurant is just killing it right now? Chili's.
Really?
Yeah. So, Dave, my algorithm,
Join me.
scary place.
Join me.
I'm served up a lot of mukbang videos, if you will, which is just people eating food with really loud noises.
Triple Dipper.
And there's these things called the Triple Dipper, which is the world's largest mozzarella stick, and it has gone viral. And so Chili's is just serving appetizers to people as they dip giant mozz into all sorts of toppings. Kristen, have you tried a Triple Dipper mukbang style?
I am an OG Chili's fan. Before it was cool, I've tried it all. I love Chili's.
I feel like Chili's really got beat up on in culture. I have no problem with Chili's. Like I'm not choosing it over fine dining, but I've not been in 10 years. But there's nothing wrong with it to me.
No, I need a $5 margarita and a 3 for $10.
Dan, where do you stand on mukbang?
I have no idea. I've listened to you for the last minute. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Mukbang is great YouTube.
Mm-mm.
There's no way I'm typing that into my phone.
I'll type it in on my work computer and I'll send you a link. Let me check with our IT department first.
Not into it.
You don't like mukbang videos?
No, the noise.
It's sort of a bad word choice.
Yeah.
But Dame, it's someone just
Eating.
it's ASMR for food eating.
Do they chew with their mouth closed?
Not often.
This is no worse than the Indian head massage run I got put on a couple years ago.
That's true.
Just go watch people proving fake seals are fake.
Probably a lot of stolen valor this week. All right, that's it on the show. Sending you good vibes because good vibes are all that's in the budget. I'm Pete the Planner, and this was certainly the Pete the Planner show.
And there at the end, we got into something I really care about. Thank
Stolen valor.
you. Chili's.
Chili's.
I love Chili's.
Man, I love a good mukbang video.
Mm-mm.
That's the worst possible.
One of my favorite YouTubers right now is this guy named Fat Vic. P-H-A-T. P-H-A-T.
Respect.
He is a slender Korean man, a Korean American, and he is known for eating 365 days in a row of chicken wings and doing chicken wing reviews.
Every day.
In the DC area. He quit his job as an attorney to do mukbang videos on YouTube. Crazy smart guy. Like, Dame, you're watching this guy, you're like, this guy could be our attorney. But he would take the billings that he got from you and he would buy chicken parts.
Dead chicken.
You look so skeptical of the words coming out of my lips right now.
No, I 100% believe that this channel exists, that this person exists. I struggle to find out what, to imagine what the draw to watch it is.
Top 3 YouTube creators for you right now, Kristen. Top 3. Dame, I'm going to ask you the same question. Top 3. I'll start. I'll buy you some time. Fat Vic, right? The wingman. Bruzel, which is a bourbon review and hunting series. And Pinal County Sheriff Frank Slope. He pulls people over and then, like, I'm telling you, I've
seen that guy.
He's amazing.
Yeah, that's a fun watch.
Those are, and then I also like SLB Basement Bourbon, which is a father and stepson who review bourbon in a basement in Valparaiso, Indiana. I don't know. That's what I watch. Kristen.
Not in order. Diary of a CEO. You've not seen that?
I have no idea what it is.
I think the guy's from the UK and he interviews like industry experts and just like asks them all these in-depth questions. Probably Theo Vaughn's podcast, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, fine.
And Financial Audit with Caleb Hammer.
Are you trying to better yourself with your YouTube consumption?
Yes.
How boring is that?
I've had so many people tell me to watch the Financial Audit Caleb thing. I've watched a couple of them.
I thought you were, Kristen, I thought you were anti that guy.
No, not at all. I do think that I'm a big fan, actually, because I think that the exposure to how other people are living their personal financial lives is good for the collective, what do I want to say? For the greater good. But I do think that his approach of like, strip away anything discretionary and then live that way for 3 years to be out of debt is just totally unreasonable and unapproachable. But I like the like audit part where he like makes people come to terms with their spending.
Real quick, Dame, before we go much further on that, I just want to say anytime we're going to talk about another creator in the financial space by name, we appreciate the work that you're doing.
Absolutely.
Right? Like we may do it different. And we are criticizing in the margins here, but we appreciate you trying to help people.
Yes.
Back out of it.
I would frankly love to know way more about his production because there's some things that I see granted in small clips, usually the shorts, that I'm like, how is this even somebody who's in this profession? How is this possible? Like, how was it set up? Is it what agreements have to be signed beforehand? How much of this is legit? How much of it is embellished a little bit? I don't know, but there are some truly jaw-dropping things that I've heard on that.
Before YouTube got really big and years ago, I went into like pre-production for a pilot for that sort of thing before in New York, and they would go to Craigslist and search out people that would want a financial makeover for a reality show. And so that's how they did it back then. Now he's got enough of a following. I think people self-submit.
People apply. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Correct. You can apply. Caleb Hamer.
Dame, what are your 3?
Mine are incredibly boring and probably exactly on brand.
Great.
I would say it's a combination of golf content creators,
Okay.
which is anywhere from Bryson DeChambeau to Grant Horvat to the Bryan brothers. Just some, not only do they play really good golf, but some of the production quality is just outstanding. Some of the videos they make are just amazing. Then there's some car folks. Straight Pipes is a good one. It's a fun one to watch. I don't know. It's just a smattering of other stuff that pops up in my algorithm. I mean, my homepage on YouTube is really boring because it's like one of 3 things. So,
All right. Hey, we did it. We went. Is this the longest show ever?
No.
essentially,
After the longest week ever. Actually, you know what? You guys, and we're going to end here. It wasn't a long week. It was decisive. It was over quick.
True.
All 7 swing states. One Direction.
I was right, by the way. I said Wednesday.
yeah. I never would have guessed that we would have known by the time most people woke up on Wednesday that we would know pretty decisively.
Yeah, I agree. Hey, thanks everybody for keeping it cool today. Everyone listening, please understand lots of feelings. Super excited. People are super upset. I don't want to say great because that sounds terrible, but like we get it. We're hitting the numbers today. That's what we tried to do. If you're still here, maybe you're so pissed off that you already switched on to the Conan O'Brien podcast. Anyway, thanks everybody. Stay getting money.